Corinthians player sent off in the match against Varmeras was André sent off for making an obscene gesture. The guy was just adjusting himself. Come on, for God's sake, man. Every man knows what that is. The guy is just adjusting his junk in his underwear. For God's sake, man, it's not possible. Varmeras still have the nerve to complain, man. They still complain. 2 players sent off. An ejection like that. That's crazy, man. What a joke, man. Flamengo. It's going to be considered a nation. This is exclusive information. That campaign Flamengo ran had an effect. This Monday, the UN will recognize Flamengo as a nation. My God, I want a passport. This will be in New York with the presence of Zilko, who was our idol, who was the poster boy for Mengo's official campaign. Flamengo, being recognized as a nation. If Lila Pereira was issuing a statement, because she postponed a game by 1 day. Imagine now Flamengo as world champions with a whole nation behind them.
Pedro, you joked about not knowing all your records, but they were major milestones? You became Flamengo's top scorer of the century. You surpassed Gabigol, who is one of the club's idols, and you're also on the list of the top scorers in Maracanã's history. How do you feel about becoming part of history? Can you tell us what it feels like to once again make your mark in the history of a club like Flamengo with your goals? A spectacular goal against a team you used to play for. There's that ex-player curse. It's quite a storyline. So tell us a little about how it feels to be able to reach so many milestones like this for Flamengo.
Like I always say, God does things in my life that I never even imagined. Today was proof of that, because it's a very important derby. I broke some records today. As I mentioned, I don't focus on the record, just the day-to-day, and things happen naturally. And today I reached the milestone of becoming the second highest scorer at Maracanã. You passed one and I don't even know anymore. 4th highest scorer in Maracanã's history. 4th, yeah. We could go on for 3 more pages. Anyway, some of the milestones I reached today, and I thank God it's all hard work, right? Since I arrived here at Flamengo, things have happened very naturally, earning my place, growing, evolving in every way. So I'm happy for every milestone I reach here at Flamengo, and it's a dream that I fulfill every day, being here wearing the Flamengo jersey. I hope I can achieve even more. I'm sure there are more things ahead, and we're going to accomplish more. Damn, straight from Berlin.
Yeah, talking a bit about the importance of having managed to change the date of the game, which was supposed to be yesterday but was moved to today. How was it to have this extra time? And the day before the break, after a complicated trip, was it the return from the course?
Well, for us players, I think for us players from Flamengo and Fluminense, it was important, I think, because we had that flight delay. And like I just said, we're very grateful that Fluminense accepted this request. I think it's important even for the spectacle too. First comes the human side, the athlete's side who needs this rest. We know how the Brazilian Championship and the Brazilian soccer schedule are exhausting for the athletes. So I think if they show this common sense when they need it, we will too.
Leo, I want to talk about the derby. You've already played in many Vasco versus Flamengo and Fluminense versus Flamengo matches. Discuss how the team's experience differs, since for fans the impact is different. Vasco, Fluminense, and the Fla-Flu. I want you to tell the group which game is the hardest. If playing against Vasco is a little easier, I want you to talk a bit about that.
Thank you. Both games are rivalry games, they're important. We know about the rivalry between the fans. The one group of fans trying to cheer their team on more than the other. But for us, there's not much difference. We treat every game like a final, whether it's a derby or not. We know there's a lot of weight because it's a derby, but we treat every game like a final, whether it's against Palmeiras, Vasco, or Fluminense, or Curitiba, Atletico, whoever we face.
Look, still talking a bit about the logistics Flamengo went through, the altitude, this gap in the schedule today. You've already talked a bit about having an extra day of rest, but was there anything specific that the squad felt or that you felt on this return, along with the delay at altitude, that made it easier to have this extra day before the derby?
For sure, we get an extra day of recovery, not even rest. We get an extra day of recovery, which is very important. Like I said, the schedule is tough for the players, and the more the clubs help each other, I think everyone benefits. Not just the players with the rest, but also the fans with quality and intense soccer like we had today.
I have to say it really confuses me. It's strange to hear so much talk about something that should be normal. We're already used to them being crybabies. I mean, they're professional crybabies. They complain about everything and anything. Others, I was quite surprised to hear them talk about something that doesn't concern them. Like you said, it was an extremely tough trip, just like it was for Fluminense. Thank you. And it's really about the show and the players' health.
I'm a fan of Boto now, huh?
Among the clubs, so that the match could take place today. I'm sure the match we're going to see today is better than the one we would have seen yesterday.
And it really was.
Great match.
Best recent Fla-Flu.
And it's obvious that if Fluminense's coach didn't think he would take advantage of that, because any coach who has more days to train and rest his players, he wouldn't have accepted it. I think it's something that's good for the spectacle. It's good for Brazilian football. And at a time when there's so much talk about the league, and the league should be something to protect the product, and our product is the spectacle we put on for the spectators and for television. Seeing clubs criticize a decision that protects the players' health and protects the product that we all depend on, I really don't understand why they're going down that path.
Perfect, huh? Perfect. Man, so he's making it clear that Palmeiras is the crybaby team. Crybaby that complains about everything. Leila and Palmeiras. And the other asshole is the one who stuck his nose where it didn't belong, right? And so on. With Palmeiras, that's their MO, right, Papa? That's always been Palmeiras' way. They complain about everything.
Well, good evening, everyone. Regarding the issue, I'll break it down into 2 or 3 items here. First, I think there was a moment, which was a moment. First part, and even the ball hit the post, and then Fluminense then got a fluky goal. Because at that moment we were closer to scoring than they were to scoring a goal. It wasn't about first half and second half, it was up until that moment. Then for sure, after the chances we missed, after the pressure we put on for 75 minutes, leaving a goal a little bit of a mess, bouncing around, and it ends up beating our goalkeeper. All right, the team got a little more tense. I couldn't press as much anymore, and the opponent did their job thinking it was their lucky day, trying to impact the game, and we tried to defend. Some fatigue from our midfielders, our defensive midfielders. We had used both of them in the high altitude match. We had also used Ney. Unfortunately, we had 3 defensive midfielders out, Jorginho, Saul, and Eric. And that was our biggest concern, to keep the momentum going, but we managed it with a great effort from those who were there. But I think it's a huge victory, one that in terms of merit, while, for example, in the Carioca final I was much more balanced today, if luck is on our side, we could easily have been 3 or 4 up by the 75th minute, okay? I think that's my assessment, my analysis of the game. We pressed well, held a high line, and reduced spaces, and then the character of the game changed. That was when we conceded to make it 2-1. Honestly, I don't want to talk about the past. I want to talk about the present. We know Pedro, and we demand a certain behavior from him, and he is managing to meet the behavior we require. And besides that, he's scoring goals as a striker, a good striker that he is. We are satisfied with his performance, but mainly with his attitude, because one of the things I heard a lot when I arrived here was that Pedro didn't know how to press. I think Pedro is showing that he's a complete player, defensively, offensively, in build-up, in link-up play, and in finishing. And he's definitely an important player for us when we want to play this way. When we want to play more in transition, we have Wallace Young, we have Pedro, we have BH. Like we did in the last game at altitude, and I think we'll have the options if they're all fit. We have options depending on our needs. Well, our intentions are to improve our behavior day by day. We knew about the difficulties that Fluminense always brings to these matches against Flamengo. I analyzed the last 10 games, and I noticed that only in 2 of them Flamengo managed to score a goal in the first half, and we worked on that. I told the players that we have to press and we have to score a goal in the first half. We need to reduce spaces and press both on and off the ball, especially when they build from the back. In terms of strategy, we worked well. The players understood it on the field, and they had a great attitude, and we managed it because statistically, whenever Flamengo scored a goal in the first half, they won the game. And that's the guideline I gave to the players, because normally Fluminense comes in strong, determined, and then we end up chasing the result. And I wanted to reverse the situations just like they ended up reversing, right? They weren't the ones chasing the result, and I think the players understood the message, and on the field they managed to apply it. With the first half, as you said, it was great. The only flaw is that the first half scoreline was too narrow. I think that the red cards, some of them have they're thoughtless actions, aren't they? Thoughtless actions like what happened with Carrasca. I don't think he needed to go into that play like that, but it was the urge to win the ball because he barely had a chance to win it. He does a scissor tackle, but if it hadn't been a red card, a yellow would have been fine too. Martinelli committed a foul that was more or less similar to that one, right? And he only got a yellow card. But that's it. The referee is the one in charge in these situations. But having emotional control is very important. And when we ask for a bit more grit, a bit more aggressiveness, emotions will definitely be running higher. We need to better control those emotions. But I prefer to control the emotions and have them show more grit than for us to be apathetic without emotions and without that drive. Well, I think the extra day, the issue shouldn't be that. It should be about what the extra day provided for Fluminense and Flamengo. It gave the teams a little more time to get organized. It also allowed the players to be more rested because both Fluminense and Flamengo played 3 games in 7 days. And regarding to the show and the physical health of the players, I also think it's important to preserve the spectacle. With fresher players, the game will be better. With the players' physical health, being fresher will also mean less risk of injury. And I think all of these are extremely positive aspects that ended up happening. The result is another matter. I could be here having lost the game, but I would be saying the same thing. The reason why, I think it benefited both teams. That's why Fluminense agreed. Because if you notice, we changed, not counting the goalkeeper, we changed 6 players from the altitude game. That means we only had 4 players under heavy load. Fluminense had 1 more game, but played with the same team. That's why the advantage and disadvantage are very straightforward, which they accepted, and I'm sure the coach accepted as well, because he had already used everyone and took advantage of 1 more day of recovery for all his players. Since we didn't know if Fluminense would accept, we rotated the players, and only 4 players from the team that was used in Peru were going to start. I think it was Everton, Paqueta, Leo, and Plata. And you can correct me if you know better than I do, but I think it was these four. But the goalkeeper, I've already talked about Paqueta when I got here. I think Paqueta can play several positions because throughout his career he's played these different positions. He's a midfielder who can play as a defensive midfielder or a more attacking midfielder depending on the lineup. I'm saying that the midfielder is more offensive than Bruno up front because he's a player, Bruno Dalhe. More alternatives like Pedro coming to get the ball, him as a defensive midfielder might be better, or playing out wide. He's a player, like you said, a versatile player who can play in various situations, and he's definitely a quality player. He adds value, he's been improving, he's been evolving little by little, and he's going to help us with the different solutions he can provide to the team. Everton is a kid that I personally like a lot. When I got here in the first games, he didn't have many opportunities. Jorginho and Erico were playing. But I called him to have a conversation, and I told him that opportunities would come. I talked to him about not losing the ball, about the ability to play forward, to drive the game, and many times when he has space to push the game forward. And I believe that he's the kind of player who is very successful even in Europe. And I joked with him and told him that he's a player with physical ability, a good player. He can drive play and is strong in the air. He puts good pressure in duels, and he started gaining confidence. And honestly, in the last 2 or 3 games, he was one of the most consistent players, both institutionally and in terms of productivity for the team. I'm happy because he's a kid who works hard, he's a humble kid, and he's a good example for many young players who want to be stars at 18, at 19, and he's 22 and he still remains humble, and he's already played many matches for Flamengo. That's why not just the technical part, not just the physical part, but the humility, the work ethic, which I also like to highlight in Everton, and he has surprised me, and I'm extremely satisfied. Flamengo is a team that isn't the only team out there. It has its opponents, and everyone will try to counter Flamengo, but as I tell the players, every game for us is our final. Now we're going to focus on the Libertadores match at home, then we'll go back to the league again. The important thing is for us to do our job, not to think too much about what our opponents can do. The important thing is for us to do our part like we did today, get 3 more points and keep climbing up the table. And in the future, the idea is to prevail here, to do our part, and let's see what happens with the others. I see this as a good thing for the coach, having a player like Alex with experience and having a younger player with Everton's quality. Everton is a player who has already been on the Brazilian national team, a quality player. We're not talking about just any player. That's what I talked about with Everton. I told him this: I remember you on the Brazilian national team. I remember you in the great moments. It's this Everton Lucas that I have to recover, because I need 2 players and 2 competitive players so they can provide solutions. Because we know that some of our players playing 3 or 4 games in a row, especially those who are a bit older, can be at risk of injury. When Everton didn't play before because he had an adductor problem, I had to play Alex more, and Alex ended up with muscle pain. The situation with Eric happened, and with him being injured, I had to use Jorginho a bit more, and Jorginho also ended up with muscle pain. That's why I have to manage things so I don't overload those important players, especially since they're a bit older, to avoid serious injuries. Well, I have to fit De La Cruz in there against them because of what I told you. Our holding midfielders were overloaded. Paqueta was no longer able to press effectively, and Everton was also having some difficulties. And I tried to reinforce our central area. Then I felt that we were dropping a bit too deep, so I put the more advanced to give us a bit more depth. And if you look at it closely, we had one from BH and one from Plata in transition 2 right in front of the goalkeeper. If we score 2 goals there, the result already goes to 4, right? And that's it. But we also had, I'm not going to say it was bad luck, but we didn't have the right touch to put the game away there. We ended up not finishing the game and ended up suffering a bit more. And honestly, if Fluminense had tied the game, it would have been such a huge injustice. And I think football isn't that unfair in the end. Football always favors those who are better.